All right. Welcome back to Roots and Rights, Securing Tomorrow. I'm your host, Attorney Gregory Robinson. In our last episode, we were talking about the essentials, like why families and business owners really do need proactive estate planning to avoid those big headaches down the road. So today, let's drill down and talk about one of the trickiest, most stressful parts of the process, probate. Specifically, the common probate pitfalls I've seen over and over again in my practice and how you can dodge them. You know, a lot of folks hear the word probate and think it's just a routine step, but honestly, it's a legal minefield if you're not prepared. The first and maybe most basic mistake, not locating the will in time. I can't tell you how often a family comes in well after their loved one has passed and the will is nowhere to be found. Maybe it got stashed in an old safe deposit box or stuck in a stack of papers. This one little issue can stall everything right out the gate. That's why I always tell my clients, make sure your loved ones know exactly where those documents are. A missing will doesn't just slow things down. It can sometimes mean you're defaulting to state law, which may or may not match what the decedent actually wanted. Another classic pitfall, missing deadlines. Probate has all these specific windows for filing documents and notices. Miss one? Well, now you're facing costly delays, maybe even penalties. I mean, it's all about being organized, set reminders, track those dates. I used to joke in my Army days that missing muster was a good way to wind up peeling potatoes, and probate can be the same. Miss a deadline, and suddenly you're stuck doing extra work nobody wants. Then there's the misunderstanding of an executor's role. Some folks think being named executor just means you handle a little paperwork, but it's a serious responsibility. You've got to gather assets, settle debts, file with the court, communicate with beneficiaries. It's a full-time job for a while. If you don't fully understand those duties, or if, say, cousins and siblings start lobbying for different outcomes, the process can drag out for months, or even years. Here's a story from my Alabama practice, something I always share, even though it's a little personal. I had a client, nice family, hardworking folks, but they'd let their will sit unchanged for decades. When the matriarch passed, the will still referenced a piece of property that didn't even exist anymore, and totally missed another parcel that had become this prized bit of family land. Nobody knew who was supposed to get what. It turned into a bitter argument among the siblings, and that probate process dragged on for over a year, all because no one had bothered to revisit the plan. No updated will, no clear instructions, just confusion and hurt feelings. Last and the greatest hits of probate mistakes, not communicating with beneficiaries. Silence breeds suspicion. When folks don't hear from the executor, rumors and resentments can take root. Why hasn't cousin Sheila called? What's happening with dad's house? Regular updates, no matter how small, go a long way to keeping peace in the family. So to wrap this part up, misplaced wills, missed deadlines, botch executor duties, unclear asset valuation, unpaid debts, and poor communication are the 6 horsemen of the probate apocalypse. But, okay, maybe that's a little dramatic, but you get my point. Avoiding these blunders up front can save a lot of stress and, frankly, a lot of money. Now, you might be thinking, all right, Greg, but what can I actually do to keep probate running smooth? Great question, and it's something I get asked a lot. The secret is being proactive and systematic, almost like running a well-oiled machine instead of stumbling through chaos. First thing, get organized. I mean, really organized. I tell folks, and if you work with me, you've probably heard this, make a master checklist. This covers documents, deadlines, debts, who's owed what, all of it. Stick it on the fridge, put it in a digital vault, whatever works for your family's rhythm. And if you're the executor, keep a running list of everything you've handled, asset by asset, step by step. Communication is another big one. Set up a routine touch base with everyone involved. Even if you don't have news, let beneficiaries know, hey, nothing new this week, but you're on my mind. I'll update as soon as something happens. That simple habit can turn a situation from adversarial to cooperative. Less suspicion, fewer disputes, much smoother process. Let me just talk tools for a second. Digital checklists, shared folders for important files, even secure cloud storage. They might sound fancy, but they make a world of difference. Gone are the days of rifling through shoeboxes full of old utility bills and letters with faded ink. One client of mine, she was executor for her aunt's estate and had everything organized online. Probate went by, in probate terms at least, in record time, and every beneficiary thanked her for keeping things on track. And here's a little secret. I borrow from my operations and Six Sigma background. If you can break down probate into a process, identifying bottlenecks, creating a timeline, making roles clear, things run a lot better. For example, some of my more, let's say, data-savvy clients love tracking their probate milestones like project managers. That mindset, where you're always looking for the next step, checking progress, holding people accountable, really keeps things out of the ditch. One more piece of advice. Ask for help early, before things get out of hand. There's no shame in calling in a probate attorney to review your checklist or answer your questions. Sometimes, just one conversation can save tons of time and headaches. Like I said, just being proactive, getting clear, staying organized, using the right tools makes a big difference. But even with everything in order, probate isn't just about legalities and paperwork. It's about people, relationships, and that family legacy. I've seen families end up fractured over the smallest misunderstandings, especially when money, land, or personal items with sentimental value are in the mix. That's where dispute resolution comes in. Sometimes, just getting everyone in the same room, a family meeting, maybe with an outside mediator or a neutral advisor, can diffuse tension before it becomes a full-blown fight. I once worked with a family whose mom had a collection of antique quilts. Sounds minor, but you would have thought we were splitting up Fort Knox. After a few emotional family meetings, some with me acting as the referee, they managed to work it out, and those relationships stayed intact. Transparent communication is the real key. When everything's out in the open, when folks understand why certain choices were made, what the timelines look like, the realities of asset distribution, there's a lot less room for resentment or assumptions. I always tell my clients, set expectations early and check in often. If you build that trust at the beginning, it'll carry you through the tough spots. Let me share another story, actually. I was mentoring this young client fresh out of college who found herself executing her father's will. A big task, right? She was nervous about her siblings fighting, but she called the family huddle, laid everything out, expressed how she felt, and encouraged her siblings to do the same. It couldn't have been easy, but because she approached it with openness and empathy, honestly a skill I picked up leading soldiers in the Army, the family came out on the other side stronger. No lawsuits, no lingering bad blood, just honest engagement. So at the end of the day, preserving estate value isn't just about money. It's about preserving relationships too. Having those candid conversations, being clear on roles, and even agreeing to bring in help if things start to get heated. That's what keeps families together. And ultimately, that's what legacy is really about. All right, that's a wrap for today's episode. Thanks for joining me as we unpack these common probate pitfalls and the strategies to sidestep them. Remember, it's not just about getting through probate. It's about emerging with your family and your legacy intact. See you next time on Roots and Rights, Securing Tomorrow.